I stand in the doorway, hands smoothing over the fabric of my dress, steadying myself. The house is full of laughter, warm voices echoing off the pristine walls, but my eyes are fixed on the street outside. Any minute now, my parents will step out of that car, walk up these steps, and see what I've built, what I've become. A home filled with love, with stability, with everything I swore I'd create for myself. I inhale, catching the scent of fresh linen and polished wood, the quiet luxury of something that is truly mine. The sun is dipping lower, bathing the space in a golden glow, turning the champagne glasses on the kitchen counter into small prisms of light. I want to believe this is a moment of triumph, a chapter closing. Proof that I was never what he said I was. My friends, people who see me, truly see me, are gathered, their presence a gentle reminder that I belong, that I am enough. And yet, beneath the warmth in my chest, there's something else. That sharp-edged unease, the one that never quite leaves when it comes to him. Then, headlights sweep across the driveway, and my breath catches. The car door opens. My mother steps out first, smoothing her hair, her face already lit with emotion. And then there's him. A beat of silence in my mind. He stands by the car, looking up at the house, unreadable. I tell myself this is a new beginning. That tonight he will finally see me differently. He has to. My mother reaches me first, her arms wrapping around me, warm and tight. "I'm so proud of you," she murmurs, her voice thick with feeling. I close my eyes, holding on to that moment. And yet, just over her shoulder, my father lingers, stiff, hands in his pockets. He barely glances around before offering a nod, one of those curt, dismissive ones I know too well. My stomach tightens, but I push the feeling away. This is a celebration. A fresh start. I guide them inside, past the low hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, the soft background music weaving through it all. My mother marvels at the space, her fingers trailing over the marble countertop, the framed photos on the mantel. "It's beautiful, Jane," she says, her voice thick with something deeper than admiration. Relief, maybe. A silent confirmation that I did it, that I made it. I glance at my father. He lingers near the doorway, surveying the room like a man inspecting a house he has no intention of buying. He offers nothing, no compliment, no acknowledgement of what this place means. Just a slow exhale through his nose and a glance toward the dining table. I tell myself it doesn't matter. I tell myself I don't need it. But that old familiar ache stirs, pressing against my ribs, the ghost of a child still waiting for something that will never come. "Come on," I say, shaking it off. "Everyone's waiting." I lead them toward the table, past the warmth of familiar faces, the friends who have become family. There's laughter, quiet conversations bubbling in the background, and yet, I feel him. The weight of his silence, his indifference. A phantom presence in a house that was supposed to be mine alone. We take our seats. A toast is made. One of my closest friends standing, raising her glass to me. Her words are full of love, of recognition. I smile, I nod, I play my part. And for a fleeting moment, I believe it. I believe in this version of the night, the one where I am surrounded by warmth, where his presence does not shrink me, where this truly is the moment I have been waiting for. Glasses clink together, laughter swells, and for a moment, I let myself sink into it. The warmth, the ease, the illusion of something whole. My mother dabs at her eyes with a napkin, shaking her head with a soft, breathless laugh. "I just can't believe it," she says, her voice trembling with pride. "Look at you. Look at all you've done." My chest tightens. This is what I wanted. This is what I dreamed of hearing. A mother's love, unguarded and genuine. I reach for her hand, squeezing it, letting the moment settle between us like a secret only we understand. But then, from across the table, a scoff. A quiet, sharp exhale through my father's nose. I glance up. He swirls the liquor in his glass, watching the amber liquid dance against the rim. "Guess you're not a failure after all," he mutters, voice low but deliberate. A slow sip follows, as if the words held no weight, as if they weren't a blade pressed to old wounds. The table stills, the air shifts, my breath catches, but only for a second. Then the sound of my pulse, steady, insistent, filling the silence he's carved. My fingers tighten around the stem of my glass, a slow, familiar burn rising in my throat. The room is full, yet it feels smaller, the walls pressing in, the weight of every word he's ever said settling back onto my shoulders. I should have known. I should have known he wouldn't see me. That no house, no success, no version of myself would ever be enough. And suddenly, I am no longer here. I am everywhere he's hurt me, in every moment he's dismissed me, in every night I spent wondering if maybe, just maybe, I was the problem. Not this time. The silence is thick, swallowing the laughter, the warmth, the illusion. My fingers press into the cool glass, grounding me. Across the table, my father leans back in his chair, his smirk small but sharp. He doesn't have to elaborate. I know exactly what he means. My mother shifts beside me, clearing her throat as if she can smooth over the moment, as if she can erase the weight of his words with a nervous chuckle. "Come on, let's not," she starts, but I barely hear her. The room has blurred, narrowed, and all I see is him. A slow flood of memories rushes in, uninvited. The nights he came home smelling of whiskey and cheap cologne, his voice thick with disappointment. The mornings after, when my mother would sip her coffee in silence, dark circles beneath her eyes, pretending things weren't unraveling at the seams. The way he would glance at me, barely, always with that same look, like I was nothing, like I never could be anything. And now, even after everything, after clawing my way into a life he never thought I could have, he still sits there, sipping his drink, unimpressed. My chest tightens, heat climbing my spine, but I swallow it down. I tell myself I can let this go, that this night doesn't have to be about him. But the fire inside me cracks, splinters, and suddenly I am too tired, too goddamn tired to pretend anymore. I set my glass down, careful, deliberate. My fingers slip from its stem, but my hands stay curled into fists in my lap. The table is still, everyone waiting, their smiles frozen, unsure. The air is different now, thicker, heavier, and he knows it. I see it in the way he leans back, feigning ease, watching me like he's waiting for me to let it slide. Like I always do. But something inside me is shifting, cracking. I think of every time I bit my tongue, every time I let his words settle into my skin like they belonged there. I think of the years I spent trying to prove him wrong, only to realize he was never listening. He never cared. My heartbeat thunders in my ears, and suddenly I'm no longer seated at this table. I'm 15 again, standing in the kitchen while he slurs that I'll never be anything, that I'll end up like every other disappointment in this family. I'm 18, holding back tears as he laughs when I tell him I got into college. I'm 21, watching my mother hold him up as he stumbles through the door, exhausted, broken, yet still making excuses for him. And now, I'm here, my house, my success, my life. And he still thinks he can shrink me down into nothing. I exhale slowly, the heat spreading through my chest, steadying me. And then I do something I've never done before. I laugh. It escapes before I can stop it. A sharp, bitter laugh that cuts through the silence like glass splintering on tile. Heads turn. My mother's lips part slightly, confusion flickering across her face. My father just watches me, brow lifting like he's amused, like I've proven some unspoken point he always believed. But I don't stop. The laughter rolls out again, softer this time, curling at the edges with something almost like relief. Because now I see it, the cycle, the weight I've carried, the constant chase for approval that was never mine to earn. He was never going to give me what I wanted, not as a child, not now, not ever. And suddenly the hurt is still there, but it's different, distant, like an old scar I can finally touch without flinching. I shake my head, more to myself than to him. "Wow," I murmur, pushing my chair back just enough to feel the space between us. "After all this time, After everything, you still think you have the power to decide what I am? My voice is steady, smooth in a way that surprises even me. I glance around the table at the people who love me, at the life I built despite him. But you don't. You never did. Something in his face flickers, brief, but I catch it. A shift, a crack. The first sign of something he's never been before. Uncertain. He opens his mouth, maybe to brush it off, maybe to twist my words back on me, but I don't give him the chance. I lean in slightly, voice softer now, but no less sharp. And the real joke? I pause, letting the tension pull tight between us. I spent years thinking I had to prove myself to you, but I don't need your approval, Dad. I never did. The words land heavy, rippling through the room. And this time, I don't rush to fill the silence. The silence stretches, thick and unrelenting. I watch my father, waiting for his reaction, but he just blinks, exhales slowly, and shakes his head like I'm some foolish child who doesn't understand the world. That old familiar condescension creeps into his expression, the one I've spent my entire life trying to outrun. You always did have a flair for the dramatic, he mutters, reaching for his drink. Something inside me snaps. It's not loud, not violent. It's quiet, clean, final. I feel it like the first breath after surfacing from deep water. He has never changed. He never will. And for the first time, I stop making excuses for him. For the first time, I let myself see him exactly as he is. I sit back in my chair, arms folding over my chest, voice calm, too calm. Dramatic? I repeat, tilting my head slightly. You want to talk about dramatic? Let's talk about the time Mom had to lie to the landlord because you drank away the rent money. Or when you laughed in my face for saying I wanted to be something more than what you settled for. My mother shifts beside me, eyes wide, hands gripping the edge of the table. Jane, honey. I shake my head, my gaze never leaving his. No, I say, gently but firmly. Not this time. His jaw tightens, but he doesn't interrupt. Maybe he thinks I'll run out of things to say. Maybe he thinks I'll stop before it gets uncomfortable. But I don't. Not this time. You were never a father, I continue, my voice unwavering. You were just a man who lived in the same house as me. A man who made my mother carry everything while you dragged us down. The words come easily now, smooth, sharp, years in the making. I shake my head, exhaling. And the worst part? I still tried to love you. I still thought that if I worked hard enough, if I became enough, you'd finally... My voice catches for half a second, but I push through. But you never did. You never will. His eyes narrow, his fingers tightening around the base of his glass. That's not fair, he grumbles, voice low, defensive. I worked. You existed, I cut in. You took up space. You took from us over and over and never once gave anything back. I turn to my mother now, my voice softening, the anger in my chest shifting into something heavier. You deserved better than him. We both did. She looks down at her hands, her breathing uneven, and for a split second, I wonder if she'll defend him. If she'll tell me it wasn't that bad, the way she always has. But she says nothing. And somehow, that silence is louder than anything else. My father scoffs, shaking his head like I'm some ridiculous child throwing a tantrum. You don't know what you're talking about, he mutters, reaching for his drink again, as if the conversation, this moment, means nothing. But I see it. The way his fingers grip the glass just a little too tight. The way his shoulders tense. The way he refuses to meet my eyes for too long. He knows. He knows I'm right. He just doesn't have the courage to face it. And suddenly, I don't feel angry anymore. I don't feel hurt. I just feel done. I lean forward, resting my elbows on the table, my voice quieter now. Steady. You don't have any power over me anymore, I say. And it's not an accusation. It's just the truth. Not your words, not your silence. Nothing. I shake my head, exhaling a slow breath. You were supposed to be my father, but I see it clearly now. You were never capable of that. Something flickers in his eyes, something quick and unreadable. His mouth opens, then closes. For the first time, I think he realizes that there is nothing left to say. No excuse to make, no lie to cling to. I push my chair back and stand, my hands flat against the table. I don't need your approval, Dad. I don't need you at all. The words are final, unshakable. And this time, when the silence falls over the room, I don't feel small inside it. My father exhales sharply, shaking his head like I'm being unreasonable, like I'm the problem. You're being dramatic, he mutters, his voice laced with that same tired condescension. You always were. I don't flinch. Not this time. I just stare at him, letting the weight of everything settle between us. Letting him see, really see, that I am no longer the girl he once controlled with a look, with a sigh, with a well-placed insult that left bruises only I could feel. No, I say, my voice calm, unwavering. You don't get to do that anymore. He blinks, his expression slipping for the briefest moment before he scowls, shifting in his chair. Oh, for God's sake, Jane. What do you want from me? An apology? He scoffs. Life's hard. You think I had it easy? I did what I had to do. I nod slowly, my heart steady. Yeah, I say, and so am I. Then I stand up, walk across the room and open the front door. The night air rushes in, crisp and clean, wrapping around me like a promise. I turn back to face him, my expression unreadable, my voice quiet but firm. Get out. A beat of silence. My father looks at me like I've lost my mind, then lets out a dry, humorless chuckle. You're serious? He leans back in his chair, arms folding across his chest like this is just another one of my childish tantrums, like I'll take it back any second now. Come on, Jane, stop being ridiculous. But I don't waver. I don't shrink. I don't back down. No, I say simply. I'm done. The room holds its breath. My friends, my mother, no one moves, no one speaks. And for the first time in my life, I don't feel the need to explain myself, to justify, to make him understand. Because he won't. He never will. And that doesn't matter anymore. My father's jaw tightens. He scoffs, mutters something under his breath as he pushes back his chair and stands. Fine, he says, as if this is his decision, as if I haven't already taken that power away from him. But he doesn't move. Not yet. Instead, he turns to my mother, waiting, expecting her to follow, because that's how it's always been. He walks, she follows. He takes, she gives. He destroys, she cleans up the mess. And for the first time, she hesitates. My mother's fingers twitch against the table, her eyes darting between him and me. I see it, the war waging inside her. The years of habit, of loyalty twisted into obligation. The way she's always chosen him, even when it cost her everything, even when it cost me. He sighs, exasperated. Let's go, he mutters, already turning toward the door, already assuming she'll fall in line like she always has. But she doesn't move. My breath catches, but I say nothing. This is her moment, her choice, and for once I won't make it for her. Her hands clench in her lap, her shoulders curling inward. She hesitates, swallows. I can see her trying to shrink herself, to keep the peace, to avoid the fallout. But then she looks at me, really looks at me, and for the first time I think she sees the truth, sees that I am free in a way she has never been. You don't have to leave, I say gently, holding her gaze. But I'm done with him. Her lips part slightly, her breath shuddering. For a second, I think she might stand, that she might finally walk away from him. But old patterns run deep. She exhales, slow and defeated. Then she stands, and follows him out the door. The door clicks shut. The house is silent now, the air still heavy with everything that just happened. For a long moment, I don't move. I just stand there, staring at the space where they were, where she was. My hands are steady at my sides, my breathing even, but deep inside, something twists. Not regret, not second-guessing, just the slow, quiet ache of what was inevitable. She still chose him, even after everything. A part of me wants to be surprised, but I'm not. She spent a lifetime wrapped in his shadow, believing it was safer to stay than to fight for more. I understand it. In a way, I wish I didn't. But that doesn't make it hurt any less. Someone moves behind me. A friend, maybe. But I don't turn around. I just exhale, deep and slow, rolling my shoulders back, shaking off the last traces of his voice in my head. Because despite the ache, despite the weight of this moment, something else is rising inside me. Relief. The weight in my chest shifts, lightens. I close my eyes for a second, letting the silence settle, letting the truth of this moment sink in. He's gone. For the first time in my life, I don't have to brace myself for his words, his dismissiveness, the slow erosion of my worth every time he looks at me. I don't have to carry him anymore. A slow breath, a new kind of stillness. Behind me, someone clears their throat gently. Jane? I turn. My friends are still here. They never left. Their faces are cautious, careful, but they're not looking at me with pity. They're just here. Solid. Real. Witnessing what I've carried all these years and choosing to stay anyway. I swallow, nod once, more to myself than to them. I'm okay. And the strangest thing? I mean it. I step forward, back into the warmth of my home. My home. The room feels different now, lighter, bigger, like I've been holding my breath for years, and only now, only in this exact moment, do my lungs finally fill. Someone hands me a glass of wine. I don't even see who, but I take it, my fingers wrapping around the stem, grounding me. A toast was interrupted tonight, a celebration, derailed. But as I look around, at the faces that remain, I realize something. This night was never about him. It was never about proving anything to a man who never saw me. It was about this, about the people who do, about the life I built, the love I surrounded myself with, the future I am walking into without the weight of his shadow behind me. I lift my glass, just slightly, a quiet gesture of closure. Someone else follows, then another, and before I know it, the room is full of raised glasses, of knowing looks, of something unspoken but understood. I smile, truly, genuinely. For the first time in my life, I am free.